You've heard of Cabernet Sauvignon, but what about Cabernet Franc? Are they related? Is there any difference? And when it comes to picking out a bottle of wine, how much do vintages really matter? The answers to those coming up next. Hello and welcome to Wine This Week with Scott Leek. Fittingly, we are following up last week's episode on Bordeaux with one of its primary varietals, Cabernet Franc. What we know about Cabernet Franc is that it's at least 2,000 years old. Cabernet Sauvignon, which we'll talk about next week, we believe was discovered sometime in the 18th century. So raises this kind of awkward question, Cabernet Franc, are you Cabernet Sauvignon's father?
You are the father.
All right, that's probably the first and last time anyone's going to use that clip in a wine video. But what is Cabernet Franc? What do we know about it? Well, first of all, it is a early ripening grape, particularly compared to Cabernet Sauvignon. So it can really save the day in Bordeaux, and that's why we see it there so often. So let's say you have a vintage that maybe wasn't quite as warm, and so Cabernet Sauvignon didn't fully ripen to its best expression. Cabernet Franc probably did that year. So a winemaker in Bordeaux, when they're mixing their blends, might decrease the Cabernet Sauvignon that year and increase the Cab Franc to help create a really nice, balanced, fully ripened wine. We also know Cabernet Franc is found throughout the world. 75% of it is grown in France. Some of it's in Bordeaux. Most of it is actually up in the Loire Valley. So the Loire Valley is going to be this region that pretty much evenly splits France in half, north and south, from a climatic standpoint. So there's this river called the Loire River, and the Loire River goes through the Loire Valley. You following me so far? I know this is really complex stuff. So it's about 1,000-kilometer long river, and it empties into the Atlantic Ocean right about in the middle of France. There are 80 or so appellations inside of the Loire Valley, and they have the most diverse wine region probably in all of France. You're going to find great white wines there in Sancerre with Sauvignon Blanc, in Vouvray with Chenin Blanc. You're going to find awesome sparkling wines. If you ever find one, by the way, in a grocery store or in a wine store that says Crémant de Loire, that is a really nice bottle of sparkling wine, and it's going to be less than champagne, even though it's made in the exact same traditional method of champagne. They make great rosés, they make great red wines, and in some of the regions within the Loire Valley, such as Touraine, you're going to find some really nice sub-appellations, such as Bourgueil, which we're sampling one of those today, as well as Chinon and Anjou, like the pear. Those are some really great red wine regions as well. So the Loire Valley has some awesome wines all across the board. You can also find Cabernet Franc in Hungary, Chile, South Africa, northern Italy in the Friuli region. I had one from there recently. It was great. You're going to find it in the US, in Washington, in California. You're going to find it in Virginia, in New York. You're going to find it in Ontario. Cabernet Franc, it's a good grape that not a whole lot of people know and appreciate. So what else do we know about it? Well, like all wines from the Loire Valley, this is going to be pretty high in acidity, nice, bright, crisp acidity. It's going to make it a really food-friendly wine. It's also going to be a little bit herbaceous. So Cabernet Sauvignon tends to have some nice herbal notes, some green bell pepper. It gets that from its daddy. We're also going to hopefully find some nice, bright red fruits and maybe a little bit of, some pencil shavings, some type of woodiness to it. I'm excited to get started. Let's give it a try. Today, we are drinking the Domaine Du Bel Air 2018 100% Cabernet Franc from Bourgueil. This is 14.3% alcohol, a little higher than I would have thought it was going to be. And looking forward to giving it a shot. First thing to notice, this is a really gorgeous color. I mean, I can see the lines on the paper behind this pretty easily. It's light and really nice ruby color. And you guys probably can't see what I'm seeing right now. This looks fake. Look at this. God, I hope you guys can see this. This looks like when you're watching like a sitcom or something and they pour a glass of wine and they take a sip and you're like, that is cranberry juice. That looks nothing like wine. You know they're not drinking wine anyway, but it looks like cranberry juice. This almost looks like cranberry juice. Like this is movie prop wine. Pretty color though. Okay, a little restrained on the nose. I'm not getting a whole lot of the vegetal components I thought I was going to get. But really nice cherry, dark cherry. Like I love Manhattans and using like the really good Luxardo cherry that come in the jar with the really thick, you know, bright syrup. Not the cheap stem kind that are rubbery. This is good Luxardo cherry. There's a little smokiness and tar, and it reminds me like when you're driving along and they've just repaired some potholes and the tar is still smoking as they're, you know, flattening it out. It smells a little bit like that, which on a wine I actually like. Some of you like, dude, that sounds gross, but no, I like it. Okay. It's a little restrained, but we're going to give it a shot. Huh. It's dry. It's a little bit more tannic than I thought. It's still medium on the tannins, but I guess I just expected even less than this. Like my mouth dried out instantly, but it's already kind of washed away. The acidity is nice and bright as well, and it's kind of washed away, refreshed my mouth. So I kind of like that contrast between those two. There's a little heat. The alcohol's there. It's not terribly bad, but you know, at 14.3%, I can detect a little bit of it. And the body's, I'd say, medium as well, which is kind of what I expected from Cabernet Franc, just this Goldilocks medium everything. The body reminds me, like, if you're, I got this tip recently, so I'll share it with you guys too. Think of taking a drink of skim milk and maybe like 2% and then maybe, you know, whole milk. And the body, the thickness, the weight of it on your tongue, if you just kind of move your tongue up and down and feel the milk move, that kind of gives you a sense of when I'm saying light, medium, or full-bodied wine. So this is kind of a 2% body, if you will. On the palate, I'm getting some of the cherries for sure. They're definitely there. Not a whole lot else. A little bit of pepper, black pepper maybe. I'm not really picking up on that tar. Maybe there's a little smokiness. I just opened this. I'm wondering if I maybe should have decanted this. Hold that thought. You know, why not? It's what it's here for. I'll do a videos tip sometime on decanting. There's a couple different ways to do it. That's certainly one way to do it when you really want to get a wine to open up and get that thing aerating. All right, let's see if this makes any difference. I do love the mouthfeel. It's nice and juicy and refreshing. Ooh, okay, that made a little difference. This would be fun. I'm gonna move kind of all around here. This is good any time of year, and I'm not really the type of person that says, you know, white wines and rosés in the summer and red wines in the winter, but I don't really want a heavy red wine in the summertime sitting outside at a barbecue. This I would. I would really like this outside with a barbecue. All right, I got a little bit more. There is just a hint of like green bell pepper, maybe even like some, I want to say cut grass, which is weird. That's kind of a Sauvignon Blanc thing, but yeah, some freshly cut grass, some green bell pepper. But the cherries are delightful. It's a really nice Easy drinking wine. This will go well with a lot of different things. And because of that acidity, it's an incredibly food-friendly wine. All of Loire Valley are going to be really food-friendly wines. I do enjoy Cab Franc, and I would say this is no exception. It's simple, but very easy drinking and enjoyable. I'm going to go 6 out of 10 points on this. And for food and wine pairing, I'm going to say that if you normally like Pinot Noir, for example, and you're just looking for a change of pace, this might be good if you got a lighter style Cabernet Franc. If you want a heavier fish like a salmon and you don't want to have a white wine, this would be a great red wine to have with something like salmon. Roasted chicken would be great with this. Game hens, if you're over in France, pigeon would be great with this. I had it recently with a steak on a fuller bodied version, and that was awesome too. This is just an incredibly versatile wine. It's going to go well with cheeses, particularly like a goat cheese. So enjoy the versatility of Cabernet Franc. So how much does the vintage really matter when picking out a bottle of wine? Short answer is not very much. Long-winded answer, it kind of depends, and I'm going to say it matters a little bit more when you're at a wine store than when you're at a restaurant. First, wine quality is on the rise globally, and it has been for quite some time. There's a number of factors for this. Number one, people are just more passionate about it than ever. They're more knowledgeable about it than ever, and winemakers are just getting better at making good wine. We have a lot more technology available than ever before. There's things like optical sorters that can scan a bunch of grapes going through an assembly line and weed out the bad ones and make sure that only the good ones make it into the barrel. And even if there is a bad vintage weather-wise, they can't control the weather, but what might have been a disastrous vintage 30 years ago is merely going to be a challenging vintage today. So when you're looking at something like the Wine Spectator vintage chart, looks like this, this can be really helpful when you're at a wine store trying to determine, do I buy this vintage or that one? If you're looking at two comparable wines, maybe help you decide, is this a good one to drink now, or should I hold this, or is this one to buy and age for a little bit? So it can be helpful in that regard. When you're at a restaurant though, a tool like that is just gonna kind of make you look like a tool. So put the vintage chart away when you're at the restaurant, because one of two things is gonna happen. Either the restaurant doesn't even bother putting the vintages next to the bottle on the wine list, in which case it doesn't matter what you know about the vintage, or the place is nice enough that it puts the vintage on the bottle or on the label, puts it on the menu. And if that's the case, you know the sommelier or the beverage director knows that wine well enough because they've either tasted it or they've researched it, that maybe although it's not a great vintage by the vintage charts, that winemaker might have still put out a really good bottle that year anyway. So go ahead and order with confidence, knowing that the vintage really doesn't matter all that much. Thank you for watching this week. Please tune in next week as we move on to the king of red wines, Cabernet Sauvignon. And until then, keep trying new wines. And as always, cheers. So, first thing I notice, how do you screw that up? Hello and welcome to Wine This Week with Scott Leek. Let's just try that one more time without clapping. What is with that? Okay. Hello and welcome to Wine This Week with Scott Leek. In this week's episode, fittingly, we are continuing. No, we're not really continuing. This is its own new episode. Until then, keep trying new wines. And I was so close. Let's try that one more time. As I mentioned in the video, darn it.